gave you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our... Hi, everybody. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org, an online newspaper covering Ansonia, Derby, and Seymour. I just realized Kurt Miller is not in the picture.
He's upstairs.
Joining me, making a return appearance. It's been about 5 months since I checked in podcast-wise with the city of Ansonia. So I'm very happy to welcome back to this program Ansonia Mayor David Cassetti.
Hello, everybody.
Economic Development Director and grant writer Sheila O'Malley.
Hi, Eugene. Thanks for having us.
And Corporation Counsel John Marini.
Thanks so much for having us on, Eugene.
It's my pleasure. So we were just talking before the camera turned on or before I started recording, and we're still recording. We're going to talk about some economic development. We're going to talk about a bond rating because wherever Kurt Miller is, there's a rule, like within 500 feet of him, you have to talk about bond ratings. The former first selectman who's now working for the city of Ansonia. What's his title?
The Chief Fiscal Officer.
Gotcha, Chief Fiscal Officer. So we'll get right into it. But first, I want to read a very important message from this podcast sponsor, valleygivesback.org. Take 1 minute. While giving back is always in season, now is a great time to plan your gift. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about planned giving options. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org. This is my fourth podcast in about a week, video podcast like this. And one of the things I'm trying to ask everybody when they come on is 2020 was a rotten year for a lot of reasons. And January 6th, we saw the Capitol overrun. And so one of the things that I took away from all that was how important it is to sort of rebuild and reach out and basically be nice to each other on the community level. So I'm going to ask you, Mayor Cassetti, what do you think we can do, or what can you do to to connect that divide, to bridge the gap that exists in the country at this moment?
I think we all need to stick together. We need to work together, and everybody needs to be inclusive in everything that we do. I do that here in the city of Ansonia with everybody, whether it's the minorities, whether it's the people on fixed incomes, I keep everybody together to work together, keep them involved, keep them informed on what's happening. And I do it with my robocalls, letting people know what's happening in the town to keep the community together. That's what I like to do. And that's the way I've been doing it.
Yeah, I think more than ever now, community matters,
Yes.
Not to be Pollyanna, but it's
Right.
true, trying to keep myself above the depression line there. So,
Right.
All right. So that was my...
Eugene, a great example. We have a vaccination clinic going on at Griffin next week. And that's for individuals 75 years and older. And so we were coordinating a way of informing the residents about this. And of course, the mayor's going to do a robocall and the usual posts on Facebook. But this morning, we learned that the mayor took it upon himself. He grabbed a list of the seniors, and apparently he's been calling all morning. He got so excited. So, I think for us, that personal touch is a big thing. When you talk about bridging the gap, it's actually taking the time to talk to people. And the mayor's our leader in that respect. I mean, that's really why he ran for mayor, is because he cares about people, and he can't do without that personal touch.
Keep everybody included.
Just to put a plug in for Griffin Hospital, they are coordinating with us. It's going to be held February 4th at the Armory from 9 to 12. And anybody 75 and older, as John and the mayor mentioned, we're the mayor's calling and trying to get them slotted for a vaccination. So it's next Thursday, February 4th.
That's great news, and I do appreciate you sharing that on this broadcast. I hope people see it because that's hugely important. We're talking about saving lives and preventing disease, preventing this
Correct.
virus. Let me just ask, because I've gotten a couple of emails over the last week when they started to roll out the vaccine. Especially, I mean, somebody from New Milford contacted me. She was trying to sign up her 79-year-old husband. The fact that she somehow was contacting me shows that there's a need. Obviously, if you're not on the computer all day, if you have a life, unlike me and John Marini up there, I'm just kidding, John. But if somebody has a question, if Mayor, you call somebody and they don't know how to access whatever they have to register or they lose their password, is there somebody in the city that can help them in any way?
Yes, we got Dave Connolly, our IT person, that possibly could help them out. But a lot of the people that I'm calling, the elderly that I've been calling this morning, they have a telephone number. I give them the number and which to call at the Griffin Hospital to schedule their appointment, and they're very thankful for that. And as far as on a computer, it's better off if you call in person. The 433 number that I have,
It's 203-433.
3394.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect.
They call
Yeah.
that number, they will get in touch with a live person and they will get scheduled. That's the best way to do it. And they even tell you the computer sometimes it takes time, but the best thing is you got a telephone, call that 433-3394 number. That's the number to call. And that's what I've been giving all the residents that I've been calling this morning on.
Okay. Thanks again. That's awesome.
And-
All right. So I'm sorry, Sheila.
Sorry, we can actually schedule an appointment for them
Right.
through Griffin if they can't get through.
Okay, that's
Mayor.
awesome. That's exactly what I was looking for. Because on one hand, I'm one guy, and it's hard to. There's no central place to get all this information.
Right.
So that's really a good info. So thank you again for that. You want to talk about a bond rating now? So
Yes,
last week, and this surprised me. I got the release on Friday. Thank you for sending the actual report too. Because then I go through it. I'm like, all right, where do they knock Ansonia? Not everything can be this good. Look, we're in a recession. How does Ansonia reaffirm its bond rating? I don't really understand, because the last time you guys went for it, and same thing with Shelton and the city of Derby, everybody was knocked down a peg, and the concern was, well, the state finances are shaky. How is it now that there's a pandemic across the globe and we're in a recession and unemployment is high? How is the fact that you're reaffirming that bond rating? How did that happen?
I mean, I think, Eugene, a couple factors. The first is that the Ansonia really has had a plan in place from the very beginning, and some of the results of the plan are evident with respect to the strategy that the city adopted to strategically draw off the grand list in a way that would allow us the ability to reinvest in the community. And of course, the goal was that this would trigger increases in the grand list and further economic stability. And of course, you see that in the numbers. So I think seeing that long-term plan take effect, seeing it get to those results, I think that's one factor. Another factor is policies and procedures. So we've said very early on with S&P that at a certain point, of course, we also have a plan to pivot, right? Once we get the results that we want with the growing grand list, there's a plan to basically pivot, reduce use of the fund balance going forward, and be able to make sure that we're holding ourselves where we need to be on the threshold where we need to be. And I think they've seen those policies, they've seen those procedures. They understand, again, we have a plan for this next phase, call it a phase 2 if you'd like. So I think that planning demonstrated, it's demonstrated to be successful, and it's demonstrated that we make good on what we tell them, that when we have a plan, we adhere to it. And honestly, we've positioned ourselves, I think, in a way where, while there's certainly been, myriad challenges over the last year with COVID, we positioned ourselves where, at least financially, we're in a good place. We're in a solid place.
Back in 2018, our grand list went up over $90 million. I mean, it's gone up every single year since I've been in office, and that's what our goal is to grow the grand list, to keep taxes.
And like John had said, we made certain representations last time we spoke with S&P that actually came to fruition, and they recognize that we have a strong management team. They recognize that our economic development activity that we thought was going to occur is actually occurring. And we reduced the use of our fund balance, and we said we were going to do that, and we did it. And again, like John mentioned, we updated our policies and procedures, and they like that. So
I was going to ask, I'm sorry, Sheila, I interrupted you.
Nope, done.
Mayor Cassetti, the one knock against the city over the last couple of years is that, well, they're taking money out of fund balance and using it for tax relief, and that's not a good way. You can't do that for so long. This is a softball question, I guess, but does this fund balance reaffirmation prove that you were right, that's the way to do it?
Our fund balance when I came to office was huge, and we used it responsibly for certain projects to get done. But we're not using it anymore. But it did work, and we're starting to grow it again, and we won't have to rely on it anymore.
Eugene,
it's growing.
Yeah, Eugene, I think the answer is it's not a one size fits all thing, right? Different communities have different needs and therefore different strategies. So in Ansonia, you had a situation 8 years ago where you couldn't really raise the taxes, but at the same time you needed reinvestment. And so, we calculated our strategy based on those needs and we had an ability to use the fund balance in that way, right? Another community, it may be a completely different story. So I think there is no one size fits all answer. And while that may be frustrating, I think that's why the local leadership is important to be able to assess what's going on in your specific community and to tailor a response. And here the strategy was to fit the needs of Ansonia. That's not to be taken and applied to another community. It's not one size fits all.
Who was involved in talking to the ratings agency?
So our team, of course, involved our financial chief fiscal officer, Kurt Miller, the mayor, Sheila, myself, and of course our former comptroller, Rich Bashara.
And Mr. Bashar, is he still with the city? I know there was, when Miller was brought on board, he was going to transition out because he's like Al Pacino in Godfather 3. He can't get rid of the city of Ansonia. I mean, that
he has a wealth of knowledge. Rich has a wealth of knowledge. He's got so much knowledge about the city finances. We're going to use him from time to time, but he'll be phased out.
He works in a part-time capacity, essentially helping, finance, but he's no longer the assistant comptroller. He's essentially helping with the transition. And of course, he's proven to be very valuable with that transition.
Yes.
And then in terms of the fund balance, I thought I read Friday, and I'm an idiot when it comes to numbers, but I think it said City of Ansonia is keeping its fund balance at about 12% of the operating budget. Is that right?
Correct.
And you're able to do that because that's a big percentage.
Yes. Yeah. It's a healthy percentage. 9 point. I don't know exactly, but over 9% for undesignated reserve funds.
Okay. And now going forward, and then we can wrap this up and move on to some other topics, but the budget season, I suppose, is getting underway in Ansonia. I know it sort of is in Derby, at least. How's that looking in what's become a cliche, but in these uncertain times? We don't know where the economy's going. Although it seems like all this influx of money from the federal government is keeping the state afloat, like all their deficit projections are being erased. The stock market is doing well. I don't get any of that. But what's going to happen? Or is there going to be a small tax increase this year, do you think?
Well, right now we went for an extension on our grand list, setting our grand list because our assessor had left. But probably by the end of March, I should have my budget in. And I did tell my staff, and I preach it to them, that we're to keep taxes stable. I do not want to go up, and we're working on it. It's still in process, work in progress.
Okay. And then switching gears, there's been a lot of talk on social media. Beyond talk, the Ansonia Police Department has reported several purse snatchings that have taken place, not only in Ansonia, but it's also happened in Derby,
Right.
Oxford, according to the Seymour First Select Woman. I get this. There's a perception, and it might be because I'm on the Neighbors app now. There's a neighborhood watch group on Facebook that I'm in. There's one in Shelton. A lot of people are talking about crime, this low level property crime that seems to be taking place. Is it a concern, and what is the city doing about it?
It is a concern. I mean, there's been a rash of burglaries with the car break-ins. Yesterday, the purse snatching at Stop and Shop and the gas station. But the chief has informed me that he is on top of it. The police are on top of that. Yeah, it is concerning, but we're working with it. I mean, with what we have now in today's society.
And I was at a Derby Police Commission meeting about a week or two ago where they talked about the fact that one thing that's fueling some of these burglaries is people leave their fobs. See, I have an old car. I don't even know what a fob is, or whatever the fancy way to start your car. They leave it in the glove compartments, which I guess the New York Times did a national story saying that is a reason for so many cars are being stolen, because it's just easy to do so.
Right. The people should lock their doors at night, their car doors, secure it. Don't leave the fob in there. Bring it in the house. I have one on my car. I bring it in every night, but everybody should lock their doors. A lot of these break-ins are people who leave their doors open, which is not a good thing. You got to lock everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the COVID has unfortunately had that effect throughout the state. Is that I think with bad economic times, you have people resorting to desperate measures. It's just becoming more commonplace, unfortunately. I don't think Ansonia is, an exception. I think it's unfortunately a sad trend. So vigilance, like the mayor said, number one, make sure things are locked. Also make sure things aren't left out on the seat, because anybody walking by cars looking in, they're going to notice if you left something interesting sitting right there on the car seat. So just take that extra bit of vigilance to make sure that you're putting it in the console, or that you're taking something with you. Don't leave stuff out.
And there's been,
in terms of our, effort, obviously we believe very strongly in police presence. Mayor works very closely with the police chief and the police commission. And that's a big part of the reason why even before this, there was an intention to bring our police station downtown, to put them front and center, and to put, police presence, front and center out there in our busiest, densest areas.
So, Attorney Marini, you just provided a perfect segue. You're like Pat Sajak up there, the police station. I know Gene Fabio Sosnovich, who's freelancing for the Valley Indy now, wrote a story a couple of weeks back. How's the police station coming along? What is it, 65 Main Street?
Yes.
65 Main Street. So it's coming along well, on schedule, we believe, for the summer of this year. And essentially you're in that stage where you're making sure everything is going to land right. The police station itself is well underway. You're adding on that element of the senior center. That's likely to go out to bid within the month, but things are starting to look, in terms of plans, to look very finalized. And it's a matter of making sure everything is on track, and it rolls into the station on time.
When you say the senior center is going out to bid, I thought it was all included in a price. What's going out to bid?
So the architect has put together all the specs, and of course there's an estimate on what the cost will be, but it needs to go out to bid to actually go out to, get quotes on the actual construction.
I know, and I haven't checked in, and it was confusing. Does this inclusive of the additional money that was approved by the alderman?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry, Sheila, go ahead.
It's 7,000 square feet. And the PD, right now, they're replacing all of the glass on the exterior windows, and the tower is being constructed. And then simultaneously, the equipment and technology wiring is being done for the PD.
And is that building, do you have an idea of what every space inside the building will be used for? I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the senior center was going there, or it was not going there, but now it's definitely going there. Is there any extra space left over in there for other?
Yeah.
On the PD floor, there isn't any extra space. That's all being utilized, and of course they can't share it. But that second floor, which is really the first floor, that's going to include a 7,000 square foot space for the seniors, a multi-purpose community center, a gym, and there will be additional office spaces as well, which we aren't sure what's going to be going in there, but hopefully something revenue generating.
And then in
There
terms
we
of
go.
let's go up Main Street towards City Hall, staying on that side of the street. The Palmer Building and Chromium, the former Chromium processing thing. How is that coming along? I haven't driven down there in a while because I don't leave this space. But I know there was mixed use development was approved by your P&Z a while back. Has that project started?
Yep, their site plans were approved for 497, 153, and 165 Main Street. And they've done interior demolition. I think some of the photos we had up on Facebook. And now they're pulling permits for all the construction end of things, the electrical, the contractors, et cetera. So they are just, as a matter of fact, just received notification that they're sending to the building department all of the copies of the plans so that the inspectors can go out there. So you're going to see a lot of activity with respect to the 90 residential units and to also the anchor tenant.
Oh, okay. All right, Sheila, you're being coy. This is like trademark Sheila O'Malley. Mayor Cassetti, let's
Oh, yes.
let me hold on. Let me mute O'Malley and Marini, Mayor. Let's just talk for a second.
No. Don't mute us.
Who's going in there, Mayor Cassetti? Give us a hint at least. Come on, we need some good news.
They make a lot of pancakes.
Oh, okay. All right. That's been previously reported. IHOP, perhaps. Okay. I called IHOP the at their corporate level. Of course, they don't say anything. That was a while back. Okay, that's
calls us the town criers.
So
I mean wait, Marini's trying to cut us off.
Right.
All right, go ahead, John.
Speculate. That project, of course, is subject to an agreement that features a timeline, and the city is very satisfied with the progress that's being made according to that timeline. And of course, as previously discussed, it involves former city property, ATP Palmer, blend it with the Farrell property, and an tax incentive that is contingent on getting it done and getting it done on time. And so we have basically it's exactly a partnership, but there's a public role here, just as there certainly is on the police station, which is a 100% public project. I will say we're fortunate to have these projects that have this public element lined up before COVID hit. And it's happenstance in a way, but that goes a long way as these projects are continuing despite the obstacles that the pandemic has posed. And that also applies back down the street to the demolition project of SHW. And we're looking forward to that getting underway. And we had a significant milestone in that project last week when we closed on SHW. The title is transferred, and that portion of the larger copper and brass property is now the property of the city of Ansonia. And we're looking forward now to continue the dialogue necessary with EPA to clear the way for the demolition of that piece.
And, I feel bad now because I was being rude, but yesterday you had all the muckety mucks. There were a whole bunch of elected politicians from the state level and the chairman of the state's development. What's the office? I'm sorry.
Economic and Community Development, the commissioner.
Mr.
Lehman. Yep.
Okay.
He's a great guy. Very happy to have them. And Representative Rochelle and Senator Cabrera as well.
So I've been to a lot of these walkthroughs before, and in the city of Derby as well, a number going back since 2009 where they get the tour. Why is this important, do you think? Why does that need to happen?
I think we're narrowing things down, Eugene. I mean, Sheila's can pinpoint it for us here, but before we were looking at this property in total, right? And saying, something's got to be done. And again, we sort of narrowed our target with our strategy. Our first bite into this was SHW, again, now owned by the city, slated for demolition. And so now it's, what is that next step? And with Sheila's guidance, the next step has been determined to be the renovation, rehabilitation of perhaps the only structure on this site that can be salvaged, which is called the extrusion mill. And yesterday was about talking about the need for funds to get that piece done. And Sheila could, of course, bring us into more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to your question, Eugene. I think it's important to bring in the state delegation and the state leadership and the commissioner, and also the federal representatives, the federal congressional delegation who have been there as well, Senator Murphy and Blumenthal and Congresswoman DeLauro. I think it's important because it's going to take local, state, and federal resources to tackle this parcel. But I also think, as John had said, it's really important to narrow your focus and not have an ask, well, we've got $8 to $10 million worth of demo and remediation costs, but nobody wants to hear that if you're a legislator. So we have narrowed it down with our draft MDP to a revitalization of a 200,000 square foot manufacturing facility known as the former extrusion mill. And that gets us to, if we could get that back to production and to reuse, it's going to solve a lot of problems for Ansonia. We have no manufacturing space left, ready-made manufacturing space left. So we're targeting that building, and we're targeting our request to include that building on the Ansonia Copper and Brass site.
And then going back, Mayor Cassetti, you had mentioned this potential tenant that's coming to Main Street. And what jumps when you said that, what no name, or I'm not going to.
No, that's not for you, Eugene. That's for the mayor.
Oh, that's just a. But my question is, I mean, when you like Main Street in Ansonia, I was there from 2009 to last year,
Right.
And I've said this 1,000 times. Like when I first moved in, it was sort of a ghost town. There were a lot of empty storefronts. There wasn't much going on. And, then all of a sudden, like on a Thursday night, you couldn't get parking on Main Street right before COVID hit. So something like that, if that tenant comes in, I mean, does that open up? Because I could see like something like that being a big draw to Ansonia and to all the existing businesses once we get out of this COVID nonsense to get back to normal. How important it is to have a named tenant like that in that location, and does that help Sheila get grant money when you? It's you have like a Shelton thing going on. It seems like
it's absolutely. Listen, when I first came to office, I said to my staff when I brought them in, we need to make Ansonia a destination spot. Let's start with restaurants. Let's try to get restaurants down here so that people drive people down here. And with this new tenant that's going to come in, that's going to drive even more people, and it's going to open up things everywhere for us. Definitely with grants. I mean, we've already got $55 million in grants since I took office in 2013. I mean, it's only going to blossom. It's only going to keep growing, and things are going to happen.
And then my former office was 158 Main Street,
Right.
Suite 305. I don't know if you ever saw, Mayor, right when I left, the last thing I did, we had a giant picture of you and Alderman Yauman from his campaign back in the day. I put that across the back of I don't know, I took a picture of it. I'll send it to you.
Send it to me.
But what's going on with, and I don't want to say how we got that, but that photo, is that was going to be mixed use as well.
Right.
All the tenants are, I guess there's a few tenants left, but over the years, that was everybody was going to Shelton because you can get comparable rates and be right on Route 8. What's the status of that project?
Approved. Sheila could tell you more about it, but that's
so they still have that site plan that's been approved, and they've got a financial partner that they were lacking, which was holding up the development. So same site plan going forward with it. Just heard from the owners last week, as a matter of fact, that they're going to be pulling permits. So
that's good.
We're back on schedule, hopefully.
Yeah, I know, because that one had
lack of funding.
Gotcha. Okay, and then going up to Olson Drive, there was an initiative. I guess it had to be at this point, it had to be over a year ago. Of a John, why are you looking at me like that? Like I'm not making sense. I'm making sense. Developer Geddes was going to come in, and you guys wanted to get the deed restriction off the land there. That was Ansonia Housing Authority. The commission on a local level was down with it. And then you had entered some type of bureaucracy, and now there's been a administration change on the federal level. Is that project still in the works, or is it pretty much dead in the water?
So my look of consternation is because of how long, it takes sometimes for the wheels to turn. And this is an exciting project. we're really happy to report it's closer than ever. So it took quite some time to get the application to the agency into HUD, but it is now in, and it's expected back within, I believe, no more than maybe another 30 to 60 days. So it took a long time to actually get that over to them. There were certain benchmarks that the city needed to complete in order to get a complete application. We were informed early last year that it was going to require a little more than anticipated in terms of the information HUD would need to properly assess this, right? And this is all about getting HUD to remove the deed restriction and allow the sale of the property from Ansonia Housing to the city of Ansonia. So this application, if it's not granted, the city was not able to buy the property. But we're very happy to report that the application was complete with everything required. It was submitted about a month ago. The turnaround time is supposed to be 65 days, no longer than 65 days for HUD to give us a response. And so, of course, we are just waiting on pins and needles for that application result to come back. If it is approved, then the city does intend to go forward with the purchase of Olson Drive. And that would set it up for further development. And of course, waiting in the wings is the winner of the bid from way back when, John Getz, and his proposal to bring a private recreational complex to Olson Drive.
He hasn't moved on at this point?
He has not. He has not moved on. He's interested in awaiting the decision as we are, as waiting HUD's decision.
Yeah, he's still interested, Eugene, as of last week, 2 weeks ago.
Coming along. Okay, then my last question. I was shocked to read this, that the city is thinking about possibly regionalizing its ambulance service, its EMS service in some capacity. And I guess a request for proposals was put out a while back.
Yes.
I haven't been in the Valley my entire life, but I know when anybody tries to change one of the emergency services, fire departments, which are volunteer, that's a big deal and can kind of shake a community to its core. So I don't mean to portray this in a negative light, but what's the motivation there, and what's the latest? Is the city of Ansonia going to do away with its ambulance service?
I think overall, Eugene, there's this spirit of cooperation that we're trying to foster between the Valley communities. And you see it certainly with the exploration of a possible regionalization for education. There's been talks about regionalization of other departments, for example, possibly senior centers, trying to identify ways that communities can work together. And when it comes to our Valley communities, we're so similar, so close together. It makes sense for taxpayers. It makes sense for efficiency. And in many ways, we realize that we could be stronger by working together. So this is simply part of that vetting process. The city wants to explore whether it would make sense. To some extent, we already have regional entities servicing emergency response for the Valley towns.
I think the mayor also, I think the mayor also wanted to see if there's a way to eliminate that third party bill that our residents get when they have to use an ambulance service. And his goal is to try to eliminate that extra bill that our residents
get a lot of calls through the course of the year about that extra bill that they get for the ambulance service. I'm trying to eliminate that.
Paramedics.
Beyond the cost to the cities for the service, part of the inefficiency of not working in a county form and a regional form is you do have this double billing issue where you do have residents paying more than they otherwise would be. So it's trying to control costs for not just the cities, but also costs for the ultimate users of the service. But I mean, talking about that's crucial. The service itself, the quality of the service is paramount. So in any exploration of something like this, it's to make sure that service is the quality is upheld and only improved. And if regionalization can't accomplish that, it's not something the city is interested in doing. But it takes exploration, and that requires us talking about it, looking at it, putting bids out to see what the responses would be.
What'd you get back?
So we got bids were due back on Monday, and we got 3 bids, 2 very solid bids from 2 ambulance related companies.
Who
So,
are they? I know Vens
so
was,
we've got one from VEMS, we've got one from Nelson Ambulance, and we have one from AMS. And so
what's the
as
next step now? What happens with these documents? Who reviews it, and when do you make a decision?
So John and the mayor and finance and myself will take a look at it, at the proposals and make a recommendation on what we think is the best option for our residents. And then and John can talk more about the process. And then I believe we to have that discussion with the Board of Aldermen.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you start a staff review and that would lead into a discussion with the Board of Aldermen. And ultimately it's the legislative body that would have to make a decision to change the way that we provide or the medical services provided in Ansonia.
And do you think this will be on the agenda of the next alderman meeting? Is it going to be something that moves that quickly?
It's hard to say at this point as it's still undergoing staff review. It's possible that they could have a first introduction to who the bidders were and a review of the bids. But I think it's too early to say exactly, how quickly the process would move.
Okay, those are all my questions. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything. If you want to talk more about IHOP, I'm down with that.
Oh, Eugene.
I just meant in general, I like their pancakes.
So do I. And so does John and Sheila.
No? That's it? All right, well.
Not talking, Eugene, not talking.
I want to thank everybody for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I apologize. It's been so long. We should try to do this once a month.
Too often.
Great.
And I got to recalibrate. Yeah, because Ansonia's. Suddenly we're getting all these Seymour stories, but we got to pay attention to Ansonia because that is, of course, where my heart is.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Great.
Yeah. All right. There. Look. Now, can I be a politician? Maybe I'll run for something now.
Okay, sure. Got to move to Ansonia. You have to move to Ansonia, Eugene. You're never going to leave, are you?
Look at this place. You think anyone's going to buy this place? I got Chewbacca. It's all right. That's an Ansonia photo up there, though. That kid is probably in college right now. My wife took that for the Connecticut Post a good 10 years ago. So it's an Ansonia football player.
Charger.
So, yeah. All right. So thank you so much, John Marini, Mayor David Cassetti, Sheila O'Malley. We'll talk again soon.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Eugene.
Thanks again, Eugene.
Thank you. For hundreds of years.